Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine, plus global business, finance, and tech news. The Bloomberg Businessweek podcast with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec from Bloomberg Radio.
We are live at Bloomberg Screentime. We are here in Hollywood. And I got to say, before the time of MySpace and Facebook...
There was a time before?
There really was.
The land before time.
The internet was full of message boards. There really was a time before. With like-minded communities. That's what it was all about. They would discuss their niche interests together from all corners of the world. Bring together like-minded individuals.
Honestly, I feel like that's actually coming back right now. Increasingly, affinity-based platforms have been making a comeback. They're often kinder and gentler places where enthusiasts can just go and engage over common interests. I got Strava, for example.
Yeah,
I use
you're
that.
Really
I've been
into
like all over Reddit lately. I'm the oldest person.
It's the parent thing.
Yeah, I'm like 40 years late on Reddit, but it's working out for me. Enter Letterboxd, though. It's a place for movie buffs, and they can catalog the movies and discuss the ones that they've seen. We got with us Gemma Gracewitz. She's the editor-in-chief of Letterboxd. She's here with us at Screentime.
Welcome.
Help us understand what things look like right now, because a lot of these platforms saw a huge surge during the pandemic when we were all at home. Now we're all back out doing stuff.
Yeah.
Are you still seeing growth on the platform?
Even more so. I mean, we had pretty insane growth during the pandemic. We went into it with 1.8 million members. We came out, not that it's over, but a couple of years later we had 6 million members, and we're now at 16 million, like close to 16 million in the last couple of years. So yeah. People just keep coming to write their thoughts about movies.
Why do you think that is? Because I get it during the pandemic. We were all stuck at home. We were looking for communities and to feel connected. Why do you think it continues to grow?
Yeah, and to feel connected, and also to feel maybe a sense of achievement in our days when there was sort of no shape to those long lockdown days. I think it's continued to grow because something that happened during that time was a lot of people coming to write their thoughts about the Twilight series and then go, what else has Robert Pattinson done? He's, Good Time. Oh, The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe. This is interesting. This is cinema I've never seen before. And then started a cinephile journey that coming out of the pandemic has taken them into art house cinemas to see a lot of films that they never got to see on the big screen the first time around. And they're finding community literally in cinema foyers now. Like we see a lot of under 35-year-old engagement in the cinema.
Is it actually a safe place that stays on topic? Because you see on Twitter, you see on Instagram, you see on Facebook, it just devolves right away. It gets political, Democrats control the weather, comments such as those. Is Letterboxd free of that?
No, every part of the internet has its, can I say douchebags on Bloomberg?
You just did.
I just did. I'm so sorry about it. Every part of the internet has pile-ons, but I think the benefit and the beauty of a place like Letterboxd and Strava is that the conversation happens specific to the film that a member is reviewing, or specific to a list that they've put together of movies they love, or Willem Dafoe movies ranked, and so there's no kind of central town square on Letterboxd for everybody to pile in on something. And we also give our members tools, like comment moderation tools of their own, so they can curate their own spaces. So the conversation happens around a movie or around a movie list, and that's generally what keeps it kind. But also, it's in our community policy, 2 words, be cool.
Barbenheimer, however you want to say it. Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
What did that do for your platform? Did it give it a boost? Did you see anything significant off of that?
We definitely saw a massive amount of growth around a lot of editorial we did with Greta Gerwig at Barbie time and with Martin Scorsese at Killers of the Flower Moon time. Like, where there are spikes there. But more than that, it's not just about getting new members to Letterboxd. What I loved about Barbie was Greta's generosity in sharing all of the film references that she used to make that film. Everything from Pee-wee's Big Adventure to Singin' in the Rain. And then we see at the back end the watch list spikes of our members going, Greta loves that film, I love Greta, I'm going to watch that film.
There's a history in cinema, right?
Yeah.
Like her movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for us, it's all about film discovery. That is purely what it's about. film discovery and enabling people to discover more films, whether they're in cinemas right now or whether they're coming out on a Criterion 4K. And if someone like Greta Gerwig is saying, here are the 31 movies that inspired Barbie, we see the activity among our members watching those movies.
Are you platform agnostic in the sense of who cares if the film comes out on Netflix and in theaters at the same time? Who cares if the film was only available in theaters before VCRs were even a thing? How has the conversation shifted?
Absolutely. Like, we want people to see films where they can see them. And I mean, the state of theatrical, right, is that not every film comes out in every cinema in every town around the world. And so we see a lot of members reviewing a film saying, I drove 2 hours to see this and I'm so glad I did, because I wanted to see it in 70mm. But also other people who, you know, are watching it on their streaming services, and all of it is fine because they're all watching movies.
How do you guys make money?
How do we make money?
Sorry.
No.
We're Bloomberg.
It's a good question.
No, but how do you do it?
Yeah, we have wages to pay. The first way we did it in the early days was by inviting our members to pay an annual subscription fee to either be pro or patron level, and for that they get yummy features like their annual stats around who your most watched actor is, and a map of the world that changes colour as you watch a film from each part of the world. And then we brought in advertising, and if you don't want advertising with your letterbox experience, you can upgrade to pro or patron.
What pays the bills though? Is it the
so that pays
the subscriptions or advertising?
Subscriptions, advertising, and campaigns. Mainly campaigns with a lot of studios and distributors. So the thing we have at Letterboxd is people's emails and their taste in film and their film watching history. So someone might come to us with a film and we go, cool, these are 10 other films that are like that film. We will find you the members in the part of the world that you want to focus on, and we will find the members who have watched and rated 4 stars or above these other films. So we base it around taste rather than demographic, and it's much more effective. We have a 58% open rate in general in terms of our campaigns that we do with studios. Yeah, amazing. And they go.
Are you getting interest from working with stars, working with actors and actresses who could come on and do sort of like a Reddit Ask Me Anything type thing, a live engagement to sort of see what their fans are talking about and asking them?
We would love to do that.
Do the A-list celebrities want to do that?
Are you listening out there?
We've got a lot of people joining. We just had Michael Mann join. We just had Wim Wenders join. Martin Scorsese became a member last year. We could certainly run a live Q&A if they wanted to. We haven't done it so far, but we'd love to.
Well, so how do you get that involvement? Like, because that to me would sound like it makes sense, right? In the environment we live in, especially since you have celebrities or movie makers or actors that are part of the platform.
Yeah.
Have you reached out? Like, how do you make that next step?
Well, I mean, what we've been focusing on is our 4 favorite films series, actually. And so that's the great thing about that. I mean, absolutely, we would love to do live AMA Q&As. That will come in the future. But I think what's really taken off is the simple idea that on the app, the first thing we ask members to do is, when they're setting up their account, is say their 4 favorite films. So there's 4 slots,
right,
and you can pick your 4 favorite. You can change them up whenever you like. It's a feature of the app. We started asking people on red carpets that question, and somehow it took off. And so I guess that's our cornerstone feature at the moment. And the wonderful thing about it is, like 50 people have said The Godfather or The Godfather 2, but then they say beautifully obscure films. Like just yesterday here, Snoop Dogg was like Superfly, The Mac, Dolomite, and Scarface, which is so cool. So then we see, when we post those 4 favorites, we see the watch list spike. So members are like, I haven't seen that, I'm putting that straight on my watch list.
Yeah, it sounds like AI can be a useful tool in all of this in a big way. Maybe.
Yeah.
Gemma, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this. Thanks for finding time. Gemma Gracewood, she's the editor-in-chief of Letterboxd right here at Screentime. Gemma, thanks.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
We want to get back to Bloomberg Screentime. As you can hear, a lot going on around us. It's a little loud, but it is all about content creation, how we receive it, who's involved in it. it's being disrupted. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of technology in it. And our next guest has really firsthand seen the impact that technology can have on creators and how we create things. She's former VP of Creative Cloud Experience and Engagement over at Adobe. She was involved in the building of something we all know a lot about, Photoshop, and probably have used. Her background spans such companies as Flickr, Yahoo, Mail, and WeWork Commons. She's also the founder and former CEO of Tomfoolery, which was bought by Yahoo 1 decade ago. Let's bring in Kako Srivastava. She's the CEO right now at the music creation platform. It is called Splice. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. When it comes to music, you guys offer up tools when it comes to music creation. Tell us, our audience who may not be so familiar, what exactly you do.
So Splice is the world's largest marketplace for samples, which are the Lego building blocks that are of sound that are used to build modern music, right? So you hear all those beautiful layered sounds in pop music, hip hop, EDM, even country music that's built using samples like the kind that we provide. One of the things that we've been working on is, because we have this incredibly rich library of sounds that we collect from all over the world. So even now we have a team in Sao Paulo really going deep on the street culture there, understanding music, how music is being made and capturing those sounds for our library. Because we have this library, we can build this next generation of AI-based tools because we have a very clean training set, which is essential for building AI.
So you've created this sample library that people can play around with.
We have the sample library, but we also have creative tools that people can use that are AI powered to create their own music. So for example, you can start on Splice, you can upload a musical idea that you have, a guitar riff that you've been working on, or a little bit of a song that you've written, and we will help you assemble the track around that because we have the samples and we can use our AI technology to listen to what you've built and match the right complementary sounds that go along with it.
Pretty cool.
Cool for us to hear, but if you're a musician, who makes his or her living, their living creating music, are you scared of tools such as these?
No. I think that's actually what makes us a very different player in this space. Our target customers, the people who pay us money, are musicians. And so we're really focused on how do we take the toil out of their work. And if you watch people create music, especially in sample-based music, you see them click through and listen to 40 different drum sounds to find the right one. If we can get you in the right ballpark faster, you can just bring that into your whatever creative tool you use to sort of get to the next level.
Kako, who owns it though? Like, I'm thinking about all these sounds that you are pulling in from around the world, which sounds super cool.
Right.
But who owns it originally?
That's a great question. That's a really, and it's a question that people should be asking all the time, right? Because creators should own their music, or you should do the right thing in compensating creators to use their music, whether it's for training libraries or for other things.
Right.
So our library entirely is built on having relationships with the artists directly, who are the sample creators, the sound designers, the artists, musicians all over the world, to work with us to bring their sounds to our platform.
So are they initially compensated once, or every time somebody uses it and uses it in their own composition, they get some kind of fee?
Yeah, so we work with the artists themselves to bring the sounds in, and we have different kinds of deals. Some people are like, I'm going to just take a flat fee right now, that's what's important to me. Other people participate in our network in some way, in our marketplace in some way. On the other side, the customers who subscribe to the sample library, who subscribe to Splice, the way that works is we are royalty free, so that regardless of how you use the sound, whether you use it for something for your own personal creation that never sees the light of day, or you end up having it show up in a hit track with Sabrina Carpenter, the Espresso song, which happened recently with some Splice samples. It's fine. You're totally free to do that and use the sounds in your creation.
It's sort of related about copyright safe audio. If somebody wants to use the tools to develop something that would be used for commercial purposes, how do you ensure that the sound, what it was trained on, is copyright safe?
That's a great question. I think that's a much more important question for people who are doing generative AI, right? They're creating new sounds. All of the sounds on Splice are human created, human curated, so we have those relationships with those artists directly.
When do you get to the point where you are doing Gen AI sound?
You know, we're looking at it really carefully. Our belief, and we feel this pretty strongly, is that the way that generative AI should be used is not actually to create content, but rather to create tools to allow human beings to create content.
Okay,
right?
so explain the difference between those two things.
Sure. So one is, okay, I've typed in a bunch of words and poof, a song comes out. And that's an interesting thing. It's interesting for some people.
So that would be Gen AI.
That's a very first version Gen AI experience that everyone is like sort of buzzing about right now. Another example is something we actually just launched yesterday, this new integrated experience that is right inside the main creative tool that people use for, we did a partnership with a company called Studio One. And there's a Splice plugin that's integrated deep into the thing. And so a user is creating something, and we're able to listen to what the user is creating, or the user is able to say, find something that matches this sound. And by looking at what the user's sound is, we're able to assemble human created, human curated sounds to help them complete their. That is not Gen AI, but it's a kind of tool that builds on that kind of AI mechanism.
Kago, get into some of the business nitty-gritty. We have about a couple minutes left here. How many users? What do they mostly use it for? What's the engagement? I feel like I'm always stuck asking the question. One of us is, how do you guys make money? Like, how do you?
So we're a subscription business.
Yeah.
We have over 500,000 subscribers who pay us every month.
Yeah. And they're sticky? They stay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. Well, we still have people who've been started with Splice 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So definitely. And that comes from us focusing on people who are serious music creators, people who are really investing in their livelihood or their passion, their hobby.
What's the growth in users? Are you profitable?
We are profitable. We are profitable, and we are growing. So the core business is incredibly powerful, incredibly strong. Over 100,000 users come to our site every day. Over 1 million sounds are downloaded every day.
Wow.
So we're operating at meaningful scale. The creator tool, the AI stuff is new, and we'll all see where that goes.
You're new to the business, relatively, music business, I should say. You understand technology.
Yes.
Just got about 30, 40 seconds left here. What are you learning? Like, what's kind of surprised you and how different this world is?
So I've spent my entire career focused on creative people. You described some of my background earlier. Musicians, music creators are just like they're like software developers. They're like graphic designers. They want the time and space to focus on their craft, and they want their tools to get out of the way, right? And because they want that idea in their head to come out in terms of vibrations that will hit our ears, right? And getting out of the way is our job. That's what we're trying to
do their craft, as they say.
Yes.
Kako, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Kako Srivastava, she is CEO at the music creation platform Splice, joining us right here at Screentime.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Well, our next guest is looking to revolutionize film and television production and post-production using Gen AI. Kubrick is a platform, and what they aim to do is reduce the amount of time that it takes to build virtual worlds in film and TV.
You've been talking about this a lot.
Oh yeah. They're looking to reduce it by 90%. So traditionally what happens is you have a team of people who build these things like gaming worlds, and it takes them weeks, and it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, Kubrick says they can do that at a fraction of the cost and in a fraction of the time.
I'm telling you that Tim has been talking about this a lot, because he is actually doing a panel on this later with our next guest. So
it's like a little warm-up here, okay? A little warm-up for our panel. Really pleased to be joined by Pinar Sehan-Demerdog. She's the CEO of Kubrick. She joins us here at Screentime in Los Angeles. I explain this, but it's the type of thing that I think people can't understand unless they actually see it happen. You're used to giving the elevator pitch. How do you describe this for people who can't see it be done?
Absolutely. This is a background, and this is an actor. In order for it to be believable, when the actor moves left, the background needs to, in real time, render left, correct? So that is the reason why this cannot be a flat image. This needs to be a dimensionalized image, or this needs to be a game engine. So every time the actor is moving left, the game is rendering left. That is the reason why Hollywood and many other productions across the world are using game engines in every scene. So if you take into account that you need to make a game per scene, that means that your environment building costs per scene start in the low end of $150,000 per scene. Since there is 30 to 60 environments per picture, that means that you can start saving in a high six-figure or low seven-figure per picture.
You're $40 a month per person.
Wait, $40 a month. How much?
We are business to consumer and business to business.
So the business to consumer is $40 a month.
Exactly.
Business to business, how much is that?
We offer custom solutions because businesses have a variety of different needs, like on-prem solutions, higher image generation, or ethical AI models. So it depends what they are looking for.
You know, I would say that I love watching movies, streaming, whatever it is. But if it doesn't look realistic to me, it really
right?
It makes me like, I'm done. I'm
Yes.
done. So tell us about how you make sure, it sounds like you are a cost-effective solution, but it's got to look good. How do you get there?
Absolutely. So what makes Kubrick special is that we can augment, elevate, dimension jump a two-dimensional flat image. Like images in your iPhone are flat, right?
Right.
They don't look realistic if they're backgrounds, they're flat. So what we are capable of is to extract the depth out of a flat image and make it dimensionalized. So image generation by using generative AI is one of our functions, but if you prefer, you can upload your own matte painting. You can hire an artist to make a realistic environment, and we turn it into a dimensionalized, believable scene.
Take us into the technology, what you're training these models on for the Gen AI, NVIDIA's GPUs?
NVIDIA is one of our biggest champions. They also significantly contributed to our early days. Yes, our inferences are on NVIDIA Picasso Cloud.
Whose cloud are you paying for this?
So AWS is our bare bones, and NVIDIA is our organs.
So you're paying AWS to do the image generation, to do the rendering?
No, that is NVIDIA.
So you pay NVIDIA directly, or does AWS have the NVIDIA technology?
So let's think about the chassis of a car and an engine, and then seats and a wheel. Our chassis is the AWS. We pay them separately, and then all of our functions, all of our AI functions, every time a user pushes a button, it is done in the NVIDIA cloud. So we pay two different people.
So you don't have to buy the NVIDIA GPUs yourself.
Yeah, NVIDIA has given us a lot of breathing room. We are very lucky. So they started this program called Picasso. Kubrick was one of the first 6 companies that they involved. They gave us, so I don't know, you must know, of course, it's called a startup killer. So if you're a bootstrapping startup, like at the early days of Kubrick, you need to, if we were forced to reserve several different GPU clusters, we had to estimate how many users we would expect. If it were too high, we would go bankrupt.
You're
if it were too low,
yeah.
we would miss an opportunity.
You run out of capacity.
What NVIDIA gave us with their NVIDIA Picasso platform is that we would pay as we go. We pay for every push on the button. So that's why we could financially model an estimation of how much our users would be pushing buttons. And the cool thing is that Kubrick is one of the only tools that lets you work with AI unlimited. We don't have token system. My background is in arts. I'm a creative. I hate the idea of being limited. So once you enter Kubrick, everything is unlimited.
So if you look at the financial model, I'm trying to understand, because it sounds like you're getting an assist from NVIDIA and they've been a big supporter. Yes. You're using cloud. We talk so much about anything with generative AI, large language models, and it sounds like you're involved in that to create incredible backgrounds, that it's expensive. It uses a lot of energy. I am curious about the financial model. Is it sustainable going forward?
For studios?
For you guys, for what you're doing, or for studios tapping into you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's think about a financial model of flying to Antarctica to make a shoot. Yeah. How much would it cost? Your entire crew, how about you want to mimic Mars? How about you need to stop the traffic in New York City? What would that cost? And you're a crew in China, you need to shoot in England, like let's talk about the mathematics of that. Actually, one of our users, we went to market as a background acceleration tool for filmmakers, but our users surprised us from animation, gaming, and fashion. Actually, there's a fashion company that did a shoot on Kubrick, and they're quite nerds about the carbon footprint calculations. They gave us a report without us asking about how much Kubrick could save them on their carbon footprint by not flying to Antarctica.
Interesting. Okay, I haven't thought about it looking at it that way. I'm wondering about the business and how you've been able to bootstrap this. I was pretty shocked to find that you're not a look. I mean, NVIDIA just
capital isn't throwing money at
NVIDIA just raised $6.6 billion at a close to $160 billion valuation. So, you were talking fundraising that you've done is pretty much zero at this point. It's all bootstrapped, more or less. Give us some insight into your financials and how you've been able to build this company on a shoestring.
Yeah, the pre-seed was given personally financed by me and my late husband, who was the co-founder of Kubrick. And we have raised a modest seed round in order to make version 1 of Kubrick. Currently we're in version 1, we are in beta, and as you know, we're very grateful for all the attention and usership that we have been, adoptability that we have been getting. That's why we are raising funds for our seed round in order to create the version 2. Because we have listened to filmmakers, how scrutinized, difficult their demands are, and we have a roadmap that is exactly to satisfy the needs of filmmakers, and we are ready to execute our roadmap.
That's what I'm curious about. Are filmmakers, the major studios, we're here in Hollywood, but there are content creators all around the world, but I think, are they lining up to use your service? I'm just curious, what's the communications you're having with them?
Yeah.
Are they customers yet?
Absolutely, yes. One of the major studios is the very first company that, one of the major studios is the very first license holder of Kubrick. And we're in talks with several other studios.
Can you tell us who they are? It's okay if
I think I can, but I need to read the fine print.
I know how that works.
Do that before our panel, and then maybe we can break some news.
Okay, I'm going to call my lawyer.
Call the lawyer.
Because you know how it sometimes takes the establishment, the traditional part of that world to buy in to take off.
So my background is not filmmaking. That was the background of my late husband, the co-founder of Kubrick. So my background is in generative AI and creativity. I am learning the end detail of filmmaking since 2 years. And what I've discovered is that most of the film studios don't make the movies. They hire the people that make the movies. Production companies, visual effects studios, production designers, previous companies, they need the tools.
Right.
So there are several ways to go about an adoption in the filmmaking world. You either go top down, you show it to the film studio executives, and they understand, they run the numbers, they do ROI, and they advise the companies that they're hiring that it would be advisable to use that tool. Or you go grassroots, you identify the previous artist, the production designer, the cinematographer, and you show the difference in user of use and accessibility that your tool provides, and then they bring it to production companies that they would like to instead use this tool.
The strike, I think, is still fresh in the minds of a lot of people. Employment and who this type of thing displaces. If a film was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and now needs to spend a fraction of that, what people are affected by that?
Sure. Thank you for this question. I genuinely believe that me and all the other AI companies we have a responsibility to public. We have a responsibility, we are responsible of creating a major change in industry, and it is our duty to open conscious contemplations about what is happening and what will be happening. So there are jobs, imagine the way you create. I mean, I'm a creator, I know how I create. An idea comes, and then it takes me time to execute. Some parts are very rewarding, like ideation, vision, having 100 different options in front of me, or being stuck to one option and putting so much time with a tedious, drudgerous work in executing that option. A tool like Kubrick gives you the possibility of having 100 different options, spending less time in executing one, and spending more time in having a more dialogue with your director. So you know that there's especially after COVID, there's an insane rise in extraordinary content. And you also know very well that the budgets are shrinking. So this really does, I always make the joke, so who's gonna make that content? Will my lawyer stop being a lawyer and be a VFX artist? We need different solutions for the industry. There comes tools like Kubrick and others that are there to provide more automation in the industry.
We just had a director on, you're gonna remember the name, and I'm gonna, but involved in Ring of Power, and said her whole life what she wanted to do was work on epic film productions.
Yes.
Loves this going in and when a lot of people and an incredible location shoot.
Yes.
So I am curious.
Yeah, Charlotte Brandstrom.
Thank you. So I'm curious, because your background is creative, are you getting the creative folks on board who say, no, in order to really make it real, I've got to be on location with 1 million people, and that's what really makes it so wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. Just like anything, there's no such, I don't believe that there's such a thing as AI. There's technology and there's advancement of humanity.
Yeah.
One can debate the fact that is social media good for humanity or bad? You can have half of the population say that it affected greatly the self-confidence of their daughters, and the other one can say that they can sell X amount of goods by using social media stores. So just like AI, if you look at it in a conscious contemplation manner, it can truly accelerate and make you marvels that you could never afford before. But if ever you approach it as a competition, or it's going to replace you, it's going to kill you, it's going to take it over from you, that will be the reality you will be manifesting, because you will lack curiosity and wonder that will let you approach it and make it useful for you.
Pinar, do you think we get to the point where it's kind of a novelty and it's special to see directors to use film, right?
Yeah, it's
so a movie comes out and it's oh wow, the whole thing was shot on film. It shows the commitment of the producers and the director because it's more expensive. Do we get to the point in a few years where a movie makes a point of saying there was no generative AI used in this?
Yeah, sure.
We're going old school here.
Absolutely. I know a fact. 2022, out of the 1,000 pictures that make it in the big screen, 1996 of them were shot on digital.
Wow.
4 of them were shot on film. And last year, the film that was shot on film won the Academy Award for Best Picture. So yes. But AI is going to be it's like saying in 2 years, if ever you say that your platform is AI, it will be my device has internet.
Pinar, we got to go. Pinar Seyhan Damerdog, CEO of Kubrick, here live at Screentime.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
All right, we've got a great person from Screentime today. We're going to talk about City Football Group. They have set a new benchmark when it comes to the global sports industry, building a soccer machine that runs from England to the United States and more. So here to talk about what they're up to is Nuria Tare. She's Chief Marketing and Fan Experience Officer at City Football Group, joining us. Nuria, it is so great, great to have you here with us. Tell us about what you are doing as you expand the imprint of, can I say soccer versus football?
You can say soccer, it's fine.
As you build it out in the United States, and what's the expectations in terms of what you can do here?
Well, in case anyone missed it, soccer is actually growing very fast in the US. It's outpacing the growth of any other sport at the moment. And the good news for us is...
Why is that?
Well, there's probably plenty of things. It's been growing for a while, but there's clearly an acceleration over the last 2 years. Some may say, it's the Messi effect.
Yeah.
But it's just really the next generation. It's really appealing to younger audiences. Participation in the sport is growing as well. And what's great for us as well is 1 in 3 soccer fan has still to choose their favorite club. So that's where we come in.
Yeah.
Because in the US we have actually 2 big properties. One is a New York City Football Club, based in New York, part of the MLS. But of course, Manchester City, part of City Football Group.
Heard of them?
Our big, you heard of them, hopefully. It's our most global property in our portfolio, and of course, has huge ambitions of growing in the US market as well.
All right, let's start with NYCFC. Growth plans within New York City. What's the plan? What are you doing?
Well, fantastic plans. I mean, as you know, we've been in the market for 10 years now. We've been looking for a permanent home, and we almost got it in Queens.
Yeah.
So we've announced actually plans for a new stadium. As you know, we are hoping to break grounds very soon. I can't say much more about that, but we're hugely excited. We're planning to be in Queens. great sport area in the city. So we want to have a home in the 5 boroughs, and I think we found our place.
How do you engage with fans who are like, there's just so many different things they can do, different kinds of sports. Here we viewing things on streaming or traditional media. How do you compete with those eyeballs? What do you have to do to get those fans?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Take Manchester City, for instance, right? So one thing is winning, and of course we've been winning a lot.
Yes.
And we like it or not, winning gets people's attention, right? And we get the share of mind, if you want. But on the other side of the pitch as well, we see ourselves as a sports entertainment brand.
Yeah.
So we invest very much in media, in content production. And I think I'd like to say we've been pushing the boundaries in the way soccer clubs would be acting normally.
Right.
Just to give you a few examples, for instance, 6 years ago, it feels like a long time now, but just yesterday, we were the first soccer brand to do all or nothing on Apple. So we really opened the doors, show how it was to operate a soccer club, how it is to win. Since then, afterwards, we've been on Ted Lasso as well, several,
What does that do for you? Something like, I feel like we
crazy.
all...
You had that question we were talking yesterday.
I did, it's like
the Ted Lasso effect. What is
honestly,
it?
we got in season 1, we didn't even know whether it was going to work, right? But we could see the story was interesting. It was very much focused to the US market. Of course, it's a global product, but really appealing to the US market. And it's been great because we were big aspiration was to win against Manchester City and play Manchester City. So it's been great for our brand.
What's the media story here in terms of being able to watch games? I think it's so tough for customers in the United States to understand where they need to go to watch different teams, whether it's a local blackout as a result of just some old media rights issue where there are blackouts because two companies don't get along in the US, you can't watch your favorite sport, your favorite team. How are you navigating that?
Well, you're right, there's a challenge, but on one side, the MLS is doing a fantastic job now on Apple as well. Subscribers keep on growing, the quality of the product and the production is improving, so definitely getting a growing audience. And when it comes to the Premier League, the audience has been phenomenal in the last couple of years. NBC is doing a brilliant job in the mornings, the Premier League mornings.
Would it ever be worth going direct to consumer and bypassing Apple, bypassing?
Well, I'm going to try not to get into that because I'm going to be in trouble with our broadcaster friends. I'm trying to be friends with them. We collaborate a lot, but I think in the US market, still having, reach an audience and being able to have enough visibility is still important.
You guys do some really novel things like pop-up stores, and I just do think about how you think about expanding the brand and again engaging with viewers, people who come to matches. What else are you guys thinking about doing?
So as I was saying, we see ourselves as a sports entertainment brand, so we try to look at it not only from the game, like from soccer, but also there's a soccer culture, if you want, that we're trying to be part of. So we invest in merchandising, retail, pop-up stores, as you say. We had a very successful pop-up store near Rockefeller Center, actually, in New York. And now we're looking for a permanent location because it was so great that we want to stay in New York. We're probably going to be looking at LA and other places around the US. And also looking at relevant collaborations with content creators, collaborations in retail as well, merchandising, to be appealing to the US market, if you want, in a relevant way.
I am curious, just 20 seconds left. Your fan base, is it young, is it old, what can you tell us real quickly?
Well, we are the fastest growing soccer brand in the US. It's very young, it skews young. People choose the club 17-year-old, just to say. So it skews young. And we have the youngest fan base, actually, in soccer.
And those young fan bases have parents, which we know spend a lot of money, which is interesting to advertisers.
You said it.
I know that. Nuria, thank you so much. Nuria Toure, she's the Chief Marketing and Fan Experience Officer at City Football Group. Sounds like she has some fun in her job.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Hey, one thing here at Bloomberg Businessweek that we like to do is really help understand who and what should be on your radar. Who should be on your radar? The people who are blowing up TikTok, those who are drawing massive crowds at music festivals, they're creating genre-bending art, and even expanding their culinary empires. They are the ones to watch.
They are indeed, and Carlos Eduardo Espina is certainly in that category. He's got more than, check this out, 10 million followers on TikTok. He's become one of the leading names when it comes to Hispanic political voices in the United States. The New York Times calls him a one-man Telemundo.
His videos, almost all of which are in Spanish and which routinely get hundreds of thousands of views, they provide commentary on policy and politics. They've even got the attention of the White House. He spoke at the DNC and he's made videos with President Biden. Carlos, welcome to Bloomberg Businessweek. Congratulations on being named one to watch in Bloomberg Businessweek. You're a pretty recent law school graduate.
Yeah.
I think a lot of your classmates are probably out like sitting at desks right now.
Yeah.
Trying to find jobs with big law maybe. How did you find yourself making TikTok videos and bringing in a couple $1,000,000 a year?
Well, it was kind of something that started as a hobby like many content creators. I graduated college in May of 2020 and my goal was to work for a nonprofit organization doing immigrant rights work, advocacy, but because of the pandemic that fell through. So while I was at home figuring out what to do with my life, I started making content on social media. I started doing citizenship classes, the 100 questions when you want to naturalize, and that started blowing up really fast to the point that by the end of 2020, I had over 500,000 followers. And I was like, hey, I can start doing this more consistently, and it became my job, and I love it.
We'll get to more of the TikTok and the content creation first, but first I want to talk a little bit more about your story because you mentioned citizenship. I mean, something that you're intimately familiar with, having come to the United States when you were 5 years old.
Yeah, so my personal story is pretty long. My parents were already living in the U.S. Before I was born, but my mom got deported in 1997, so she had to go back to Mexico. Then my dad would go visit her. She got pregnant with me. I was born in Uruguay, and then we were able to come back. But my mom became a citizen in 2014, so I remember helping her study for the citizenship exam. And in high school, I volunteered for a nonprofit teaching citizenship. So that's why when I was figuring out what to do with my life, I was like, well, I can always do what I like doing, just helping people out. Started making content around it, and it worked out pretty well.
Carlos, what do you think is a smart conversation to be had around immigration right now? It's such a big part of the upcoming U.S. election. We're just, a few weeks away. It's pretty amazing. But anytime I bring up immigration with someone, they have very strong feelings one way or another. What do you think, having seen it firsthand, gone through it with your family, what do you think is the smart conversation that we should be having around that?
Well, I think the best thing to do is really, challenge the narratives and the perceptions that people have already made up. Because a lot of times people have this, either hate towards immigrants or negative sentiment, but because someone else has told them to feel that way, whether they've seen it on the news or whether, they've read some conspiracy or whatever it may be. But when you really go down to the human level and start meeting people around you, you realize that immigrants are all around you, and in many ways, they make your life better. And I think once you start, having that personal connection, meeting one-on-one, and realizing that the issue is much more complex than what it's made out to be. And yes, there's real issues that need to be addressed, but the reality is there's millions of people in this country who don't have an immigration status, who have been working here for 10, 15, 20 years, paying taxes, contributing, and it's just illogical, to try and deport all these people now. So why don't we find some more humane solutions and, really get to the human side of the issue?
You said the New York Times called you a one-man Telemundo. Really interesting profile there. We have a great profile of you in Businessweek. You're doing this by reaching people on TikTok and other social platforms. I'm wondering what you think the mainstream media gets wrong about the things that you cover on your social channels.
Well, I think, there's pretty good coverage in Spanish, I think, just because of the general context, something that's talked about more often. But when it comes to English media, a lot of times, we talk about immigration or Latino issues in general. It's very oversimplified, or it just focuses on one aspect, when the reality is it's very, very complex. When you talk about immigration, right now everyone's talking about the border, but it's much bigger than the border. It's about people in their home countries. It's about those who are already here. So I guess really understanding the issue beyond the headlines and, looking beyond, I guess, what the current narrative is. Because you have these trends in immigration, it becomes a hot topic, then people forget about it, then it comes back. And, I'm someone who lives it every single day, so I have no choice, right, to just pay attention when I want to. And I think that's really important, having journalists, having people who are paying attention to the issue day in and day out.
So important to what you do is your ability to reach people on TikTok. You could certainly school Tim and me in how to get something in terms of reach.
You should be TikToking us right now. Just throwing it out there, man.
Having said that, part of the narrative too is a potential ban on TikTok.
Yes.
If that happens, what does that mean for you and what you do?
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, it started as a hobby, but now TikTok, social media in general, is my business. It's my job in many ways. And obviously there would be, if TikTok were to get banned, which I don't necessarily think will happen. I think that they'll sell it or whatever. But even if that were to happen, there's no guarantee that the platform will stay the same. And I think it will hurt a lot of people, not just myself, but mostly the people who consume the information on these platforms. Because people have become so dependent on social media platforms like TikTok to be educated, to be informed. And right, there's this perception that TikTok is just a bunch of, crazy, dangerous trends and nothing useful, but that's completely very far removed from reality, at least how I see it. So I think it would be a big damage not only to content creators, but those, who use TikTok for positive things, to learn, to be educated, to engage with other stuff they otherwise wouldn't really know about.
Hey, I kind of buried the lead a little bit at the top, saying that you make a couple $1 million a year. You're on track to make that.
Slid that in.
We got to get the details on this and help people understand. We're Bloomberg. We love talking numbers, the business. Help people understand how you're making that money.
Yeah, so as a content creator, for me it was like a very big learning curve because like at the beginning I was just making videos for fun, and then I started realizing, you could monetize off of social media. And so there's really, the main way, the most common way is just off the video views. So each platform, for example, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, have some sort of rate they pay you per every amount of views that you get. It really depends, on who's watching your videos, the kind of content you make. But beyond that, there's also paid collaborations. For example, in my case, I've done a lot of work with like immigration attorneys or that kind of stuff. It really depends on your audience. If you're a makeup creator, obviously you work with makeup brands, that kind of stuff. And then there's also, what has been the most successful for me is making your own brand. So, like I mentioned, I've been teaching citizenship classes for a long time, and I took a class in law copyright, and I learned that everything the government puts out is in the public domain. So I was like, hey, these citizenship questions are like, why can't I just make my own citizenship questions so people can study? And I started making them and selling them for $10 each, and I've sold over like 100,000 sets of like the flashcards. So now people run into me in person and like, oh, I have your flashcards to study for the naturalization exam. So I sell them cheaper than anywhere else, and then at the same time people are able to benefit. I go on live stream and I'm like studying with them, and I'm like, hey, if you want to buy them, you can just go right here in this link, and then
we should note you're also using your money to work on nonprofits and give back to the community. Before we get to that, when I hear you talk about the way that creators are paid, I also wonder about misaligned incentives. You think of a platform like X, for example, under Elon Musk. It's been well documented what has proliferated there. And what you're able to do is actually make money by people seeing your posts on X.
Exactly, yeah.
Does that provide an incentive for people to come out with false and misleading info because it inflames emotions, people share it, people interact with it, more people see it, and then it creates a cycle where you're getting paid more because you know what resonates with people, whether that's true or not?
Yeah, well, in X, I'm not too familiar. I'm on the platform, but I don't use it to create content. I just use it to like look at news and that kind of stuff. But it definitely is like a real fear.
The same thing could be said about TikTok.
YouTube, TikTok, you know, I see it a lot where like, obviously once you get to a certain amount of followers, people are watching the content that you make. So if you make consistently like fake content, you'll get flagged, you'll get banned eventually. But there is, an incentive to perhaps, put out information that's not true that will catch people's attention. Like, for example, right now I could go outside and say, hey, I just got assaulted in LA, and there's no truth to it. Like, but people will believe it because I'm saying it. Obviously, I don't do that because I have some sort of like ethical code, but there's other people.
And it conforms to one of the narratives that's out there right now about California being an unsafe place.
Yeah, or so like people can go to the border and be like, oh, I just saw a criminal come by. I mean, I don't, there's no proof, but if I were to go say that, it would go viral because, like you're saying, it feeds into people's negative perceptions. And you do see a lot of that, and I think, I say this as a content creator, I do think there needs to be more regulation on these platforms as far as, what is allowed to be put on there. Like, obviously I believe in free speech, but when you're going into the terrain of just making up fake news or stuff that just isn't real, I think that's really dangerous and harmful to society.
Well, certainly real. I want to bring it back to the election just as we get ready to wrap up. I mean, Latinos, how do you think that they will, and I hate to kind of lump everybody in a group because that's not who we are. We all are multidimensional. But how do you think the Latino citizens will impact elections potentially this November?
Yeah, well, I think Latinos are the ultimate swing voters in the sense that, Latinos, as opposed to like other, communities, we don't have a set party identity. I mean, Latinos in general have voted Democrat over the past few decades, but that's not necessarily like set in stone in the sense like I've met other people from other communities like, hey, I vote Democrat because my parents voted Democrat and my grandparents voted Democrat, and we have this long legacy of voting Democrat or Republicans. Us Latinos, since we're relatively new in many sense, at least the majority of us in this country, we don't have those same attachments to one party or another, which makes us swing. But I do think ultimately the majority will go Democrat, but I do also see those trends that there are a big number shifting Republican.
In 20 seconds, where do you want, in, 5 years, where do you want to be? 20 seconds, real quickly.
Well, as you mentioned, so what I do on social media is I make money and then I use it to help others. So I want to run my own nonprofit organization, do a lot of community work, do soccer stuff, do citizenship, do English classes, all that kind of stuff, and continue giving back.
Carlos, thank you so much. Thanks for giving us some time.
Carlos Eduardo Espinita. This is Bloomberg.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
Well, to say that Mike Morhaime knows a thing or two about gaming, it would be a real understatement. He's the co-founder and former CEO of Blizzard Entertainment, the company behind games such as Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, and more. Now he's back at it with Dreamhaven. It's a video game developer and publisher. He started back in 2020. Mike, welcome to Bloomberg Businessweek. Welcome to Screentime.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. It's really good to see you. Look, you've been doing this for more than 3 decades at this point. The vast majority spent at Blizzard.
I think you took a deep breath and sighed there.
Yeah?
It sounds like it's been
a long time.
3 decades.
You could have just been done.
Yeah.
You could have retired, spent as much time gaming as you wanted to, but instead you come back with Dreamhaven. What are you trying to do there that's not being done elsewhere?
I mean, we really believe in the power of games to bring people together in positive ways, and so, and I think also we're trying to create an environment for game makers to be able to do their best work and be able to focus on the player experience and the quality of these games without some of the corporate pressures that you may find at other companies. And so I think that's really what motivates us, is kind of trying to show that there's a better way of making games, and if you put the player experience first and the quality of the games foremost in the process, that is a path to success, and I hope it still is.
I love your altruistic mission here. But when you say some of the corporate pressures, to me it says one of those corporate pressures is profitability, right? And having a sustainable business. So can you do what you're trying to do and be a sustainable business financially?
Well, we need to be a sustainable business, otherwise we won't have a business. So, I mean, that's very real. What I'm talking about corporate pressures, I'm talking about the short-term pressures that prevent you from making the right long-term value-creating decisions.
What are those short-term pressures that you saw in the past?
Well, I think most public companies are under tremendous short-term financial pressures to deliver quarterly growth, really, and that doesn't always facilitate the best environment for game creators to make the right decisions for the games. That could end up being bigger value creating decisions in the long run.
Before we talk about your process then, so does that mean long term you will not seek to go public? Is that not then part of the equation?
I think it's unlikely we would go public.
Because there's so much you can do when you're a private company.
I think that definitely there's a lot more freedom and ability to navigate some of the difficulties as a private company. I mean, I think that when I was at Blizzard, we sold 3 years in, so very, very early. And we were a small part of large public companies for a very long time. And actually, that was a very comfortable place to be.
You stayed with it for years.
For years, yeah. And
which is very rare for a founder of a company.
So when we sold the company, we sold to Davidson and Associates, which was really controlled by Bob and Jan Davidson, although they were public. But the agreement was that basically they would give us full creative autonomy and ability to continue running the company just like we were, which I guess a lot of companies, when they acquire companies, maybe they say that. We were very naive, so we didn't know that. That was kind of what I signed up for. And the first year after the acquisition, we came out with Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, and then Warcraft 2, and then...
So you were still innovating a lot.
We were, and we were doing it very successfully, and I think that gained us a lot of credibility with our parent company, so when they ended up selling their company to another company, and so we had all these different corporate owners, they'd look at us, and we were consistently innovating and doing well, and even when our games slipped, we might miss a year, we might miss a quarter. They ended up doing even better than expectations. After that, they were like, oh, okay, these guys know what they're doing, and they let us alone to continue doing that. I think the challenge was when we became a very large part of a medium-sized public company, then those pressures became a lot more disruptive to our process.
I see. There's a really interesting anecdote about you, maybe childhood, just with an early platform that doesn't exist anymore. Your sort of introduction to gaming. And I was thinking about that because here we are in 2024, and I'm trying to understand, so many people here at Screentime are trying to understand, what is the next platform? You had Mark Zuckerberg make that big investment in the so-called metaverse. AR, VR, Apple's going in with a headset. We saw new stuff from Oculus recently. How are you designing for platforms of the future? Like, who's going to win? What's going to be the platform we're using?
So the approach that we take is really agnostic to that question. We're very small, so we're developing on platforms that already have a very large installed base. So to us, that's mostly PC and console. The game that we just announced today is called Sunderfolk. It's a love letter to tabletop gaming, and it's basically trying to make like the magic of tabletop gaming and make that accessible to like a wider audience. There are a lot of people who self-select
Describe tabletop gaming for people listening and watching if you don't know
So we're
what
talking
that
about
is.
sitting around playing board games, or things like Dungeons and Dragons, or like Gloomhaven.
So analog.
So these are physical games.
Yeah.
Some of them are super deep and super complicated, where it might take you a couple hours just to understand the rules before you can even start playing. And we think once you get past the rules and you're into playing these games, there's so much togetherness that is created with your friends.
Stuff we did before we had kids. I did before I had kids. I don't know if you were.
Clue is a big thing in my family, and my daughter obsessed. And I'm like, is there a Clue version? Because it's just kind of sweet and fun, and it's not Monopoly where you have to like give in a million hours.
These are serious games, Carol. We're not talking Clue and Go Fish.
So, I've just been reduced.
So these are a little bit deeper of gaming experiences, and there are
you
a lot
saying
of.
I'm not deep? Is that
No,
what
not at all.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Not at all.
No, but I see. Like it'll be fun to do, right?
I think that, so what we want to do is make it so that you get to the fun right away.
Yeah.
And so that fans of some of these, we're calling them like tactical role-playing adventure games, can have a tool to bring in their friends. And the way we do it is we use your big screen, your shared screen, kind of to do all the stuff you would normally do on the table with the board, and then use your phone as your interface to the game.
So that's how you're trying to bring people closer together using gaming.
Yeah.
But use existing tools, right?
Using
it's all there,
existing
so
tools.
easy.
But what I'm not hearing from you is building for Apple's headset or building for some immersive world. You said PC and console, and PC and console are old school.
Yeah, so I mean, this is where we're starting. I'm absolutely not opposed to looking at VR or AR if those are the right platforms for future game ideas.
You must have been hearing about VR for 30 years. Truly.
Oh yeah, and I mean, as a gamer, I love it. I think the stuff that Meta is doing is fantastic, and the way that they're incorporating their investments in AI into their mixed reality, the new glasses that they just announced, Orion, I think there's definitely something there.
So when they talk about the metaverse, which to be fair, for a while, everybody was very skeptical. But
I think there's still a lot of skeptics too. I'm skeptical.
And right, and people question the renaming of the company, like, is this ever going to amount to anything? But you you can start connecting the dots in terms of the gaming world, or more broadly.
Well, so the Quest already is it is a great gaming platform, and there's some great gaming experiences on Quest. And I think that more investment will go into doing that. I'm not sure you really have the killer app yet that is going to, make everybody go out and buy one, but the price points are coming down, and they're doing interesting things with lip syncing and avatars, 3D avatars, so that you can communicate with friends far away. It's very interesting, and there are applications to games in that regard as well.
Are you having help us understand how much fun you're having at this company versus where you were earlier in your career?
So I guess the biggest difference is maybe the level of stress is taken down a big notch.
That's important.
We're a team of a little bit over 100 people right now, and we're at the stage right now where we're just getting to start talking about what we've been working on, and we're playing our games, and that's a very exciting time.
All right, so I'm going to amp up the stress because we only had about a minute left here. I got to ask you though, why is so much gaming out there so graphic and violent? It can't be good for society. Research and study, and folks would say it's not. Why does it have to be that way?
I mean, we don't think it has to be that way, and so our games don't use realistic graphical violence. And if we do have shooting, it's animated shooting. It's fantasy. It's not sort of reality simulated violence, and we're going to try to stay away from that.
Why? It's a conscious decision.
It is a conscious decision.
Because?
I just don't think it's necessary for the fun.
On a lighter note.
Sorry. It's just something that
it's an important
we talk about it a
conversation.
lot with kids.
AI is a huge theme here. We have 30 seconds left. How are you using Gen AI right now?
Yeah, so we're experimenting with Gen AI. It's not something we're really actively using in the games or the game development at this point, although I think Gen AI is going to have a huge impact on all of our lives, including games and including game development, but we really still have to work out some of the ethical issues, copyright issues, some of the legal issues of who owns what. And I'm sure that will get worked out over time.
But it's not going to replace us, right?
I can't see how it would replace you guys.
Maybe.
Thank you so much for going all around the universe when it comes to gaming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mike, thanks.
Mike Morheim, co-founder and former CEO of Blizzard Entertainment, Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, and more.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.